In this video, we'll create a very simple game in which the user is shown two numbers, has to add them together, and submit their answer. It might not win any awards on the App Store or Google Play just yet, but it will let us run through some important lessons in areas like visual coding. Let's go ahead and begin. First thing we need to do is assemble our game's interface. Do this by dragging 3 UI label components, then an input field, and finally, a button. Resize the components as you see fit. Then let's go ahead and give our button some text. We'll go with check for this example, since we'll be checking the sum of the numbers. Then we're going to click on the first label, the third label, and the text field components, and give each a unique ID you can remember for later. For example, I'll call my text field txt answer, and for our middle label component, which just serves as a cue that the user needs to add the other two label fields together, I'll set the text to display an addition sign. If you're not sure how to do this, you may find it useful to watch our page builder tutorial video. Once this is done, we can start to populate our labels by going to the Scripts tab, then clicking the Visual Coding Script button. Go to the numeric visual coding block folder, drag in a numeric random block, connect it to the start block, and its configuration window appears. Double click and set the max value to 10. We don't want to hurt anyone's brain with our game here. And then click add. Next, we'll store the value of the random number as a temporary variable so we can later use it in our visual coding script. Click add variable, then value variable, and we'll name it num1. Drag the result output node to be mapped to num1, and your random numeric block is now configured to create a random number between 1 and 10, then store it as the num1 variable. Click OK. Next thing we're going to do is use the numeric floor block to ensure that our num1 value is an integer. This block will look at our inputted random number, and if it has any decimal places, round it down to the nearest whole number with a lower value. We'll drag in the numeric floor block, then connect it to the done section of our previously added numeric random block. Let's map num1 to our number argument, then the result node back to num1. Once that's squared away, you need to repeat the process again to generate our second number. Repeat the two-block process as new steps in your visual coding script. This time, however, you'll use and create a num2 variable instead. Once you've done that, you should have something that looks a bit like the above, and our next step will be to take the values and actually show them on our label components. To do this, we're going to use a UI component update block from the UI folder in the visual coding window. Connect the done section of our most recent numeric floor block to this new block, and we'll then configure it. Your first step will be to find whatever you named your first label box from the left menu and drag it to the component argument for the component update block. Then, you'll drag the num1 variable we just created to the text argument and click OK. Once the first label is populated, we want to do the same thing with our second label, so go ahead and repeat the process, but this time mapping the label 2, or whatever you named it, to the component argument, and num2 to the text argument instead of num1. Now our script should be good to go to show two random numbers between 1 and 10 on our labels. But we're not done yet. Our next step is to store the sum of our two variables to a global variable that we can call on later. It's important to note that local variables like num1 and 2 are only available to use within the scripts they're created. Global variables, on the other hand, can be stored so that other scripts and components can call on them at will. Our first step, of course, is to get a sum, so we need to add these two numbers together. Let's go ahead and drag in a numeric add block. Once we've done this, we're going to go ahead and map num1 and num2 to the variable arguments. Then map the result output to a new variable you create called result, just like I'm doing now. Then we'll click OK. Our next step is to store our sum as a global variable, not just a local one. So we'll go into the variable folder, then drag in a global variable set block. Map the done section of the previous block to it. When we do this, we'll have two arguments that we need to configure. We'll have to specify a variable name and the value that it should display. Let's go ahead and double-click variable to give it a name you can remember for later. I'll use sum. Next, drag the result variable that we created in the previous numeric add block to the value argument. Click OK, and this script is done. It will now generate two random numbers, display them in the appropriate labels on screen, add them together, and then store the sum as a global variable we can later check against the player's inputted number. Let's close the visual coding window and save our page. Next, we need to check if the player's entered text in our text input field is equal to the global sum result variable our script just saved. To do this, we'll need to run another visual coding script when the check button is pressed. Click on your button component, then click on the pencil to edit its click event. The first thing we have to do is recall our global result variable we just saved in the previous script and bring it in as a local variable in this script. To do this, we're going to use another variable block called the variable global get block. Let's drag that into our workspace and connect it with the start node for this script. We're going to name our variable sum, add a local variable named result, and then map our output variable node to results. What this is going to do is grab the global variable called sum and load it into a local variable we can use called results. Now, we will check if the value in our text box is the same as the value stored in our result variable, the sum of our two randomly generated numbers. We will accomplish this with a condition if block. We're going to go ahead and populate one argument of the condition if block with txt answer, and the other with the result local variable we just created by bringing in our global one. When you're all caught up, go ahead and click OK. And if you've watched any of our previous tutorials, you probably know that this condition if block has connection points for if equal and if not equal, which we can program separately. Let's use the message toast block, which displays a message near the top of the screen, to show a message if the two values are equal. Map the equal result of the condition if block to the toast message block, then double-click the message argument to save the message you want to display. This could be "you are right," "correct," "you are a certified genius," or whatever message you would like to display to congratulate your players on their basic addition skills. Finally, we want to reload the page, which will trigger the first script you wrote, generating two new numbers and starting the process over. To accomplish this, we use a page.load block and map the home page to the block's page argument, then click OK. But what if the player isn't correct? Let's display a wrong answer or try again message in the middle of the screen by dragging in a message show block and mapping it to the not equal section of the condition if block. The player can then close this message and try again, but for now you can go ahead and leave the visual coder once you've got that configured, then save your page. Let's head over to the live preview and test out our game. Try a right answer and a wrong answer to make sure your messages are displaying as intended. It's simple, the UI needs work, and we've got some serious work to put in before we're ready to hit number 1 in the App Store with it, but it's not bad for less than 10 minutes of work. More importantly, hopefully this exposed you to some new visual coding blocks and some more ideas for how you can work in Aquro. Perhaps we'll revisit this app in future tutorials to give it a nicer design and make it a bit more exciting. But that's all for this video.